Hey everybody, this is Trey with BlackFalconElectronics.com, and in this video I will be telling you guys and showing you guys the sensors I will be using for my automated home security system, also known as Project Castle Guardian. But first, if you guys are interested in supporting me at BlackFalconElectronics.com, I implore you guys to consider buying a Sparrow programming kit. What this is a kit that I have made on my own, and it's filled with different sensors, hardware, and materials that teaches you Arduino programming. So you also get a lifetime access to the download materials that'll teach you how to program and make projects much like I do. So if interested, please look in the description of this video, as well as check out our site, blackfalconelectronics.com, where you will find our Amazon store, and I'm also building my own store on the website. But let's go ahead and get back into the video. So in one video, I discussed how everything was going to be broken apart as far as the RF control. How was the signal going to be sent from one sensor to another? More specifically, the panel to the different sensors that exist. I also talked about an overlay of how everything was supposed to communicate with the panel, which is the system that maintains everything. It maintains all of the sensor, all the traffic flow, and it records it as well. But now let's break it down to the sensor level. Every single sensor, what is going to happen with them and how are they going to work? So first we have the door window sentry. Obviously the door window sentry is going to be a sensor that is on every door and every window that is in the house. What it does is it has a reed switch. A reed switch is a device that has a magnet, and a magnet connects to a switch via magnetic pull. So when the door is open, you will either have electricity or you won't have electricity, depending on if you buy a reed switch that is normally open or normally closed. And then the opposite will happen when the door is closed again. So all you have to do is on every door and window, put a reed switch on it so that when the state it is in when it's closed, when the opposite state happens, that it will send a signal using an A-tiny, and that A-tiny will receive that information. It will do a digital read and detect that there is voltage or that there isn't voltage, depending on the type, normally open or normally closed. And then it sends that information to a radio. Now that radio will then send a signal to the system panel telling it that a door or a window has been opened. But it will do more than just say, hey, a door or window has been opened. It says specifically this specific door or this specific window has been opened. So because I have multiple doors and windows, there will be a naming convention for each one. So when the system panel receives that information, it can determine, okay, what is the alarm level? And it can react from there. Because if it's just an internal door, that could be treated differently from an external window, like a window that goes to the outside versus a door inside. Someone's opened the door to go into the room, it may or may not be a problem, but it'll definitely be a problem if one of my windows are open. See, it has a different level there. So the A-Tiny is a very small microcontroller. It's kind of similar to the Arduino in that it is a microcontroller, but it has very limited function. So I decided to use the A-Tiny because it is so small and relatively cheaper than using a Arduino microcontroller, because it has to do very little. The libraries it can support are very little, but for what I need it for, just detecting if something is open or closed, it is absolutely perfect. So all I'm going to do here is going to do a digital read for that signal, and then if it trips and sends it to the radio, that data is sent to the system panel. Now, with this being so cheap, I mean, all the microcontrollers are pretty cheap, but this is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. But this is the door and window sentry that we have here. Pretty simple, pretty nondescript, but you can see here the communication between the radio and the system panel is two ways. So the radio can send information to the system panel, and the system panel can vice versa send information to the radio for the A-Tiny to process. The different things that it could tell the A-Tiny to do is either activate, to deactivate, give me your system status, are you online or offline? If it's offline, obviously there will be no response, and at that point the system panel will know how to react from there, whether that's to send me an alert or to go ahead and just have another, focus more on another sensor, record that information. So later when I try to deactivate the system, if I decide to see system info, it'll tell me that, hey, this sensor is deactivated or is otherwise non-responsive. Next is the somewhat more complicated Room Sentry. Now the Room Sentry is going to consist of two different systems put in the same category. So the Room Sentry is going to have the Room Sentry and the Camera Sentry. So what this does is, instead of using a reed switch as you saw with the Door Window Sentry, the Room one has a PIR, which is a passive infrared sensor. So what it does is, it is a sensor that detects heat energy. So we cannot see it as human beings, our eyes cannot see it, but everything that emits heat emits a type of radiation, infrared radiation. So if you turn on your oven and you put your hand out, like if you closed it for 10 minutes with it being on and opened it, all that heat that you feel, that's a type of radiation, which is pretty awesome. The sensor can detect that heat. It detects that radiation, and from there it'll activate. So what it does is, when you first turn it on, when you first turn on a passive infrared sensor, what it does is it gets the steady state, it gets the normal state of the area that it can watch, such as a room, for example. And once it gets its baseline, if it detects anything that is outside of its baseline, something that has more heat than it previously had, it detects it and then it sends a high signal. So what I can do for that is, when I activate the Room Sentry, the PIR obviously turns on, and it has about a 1 minute warm-up time from my experiments. And from there, it'll just constantly be watching for a difference in state in the room or whatever area it is watching. So then when it detects someone walk in, anyone walks in, it then sends a high signal to the AT-Tiny, which then reads that state, and from there sends information to the radio. Now the radio will do two things. One, the radio will send information to the system panel, but what it will also do, as well as sending information to the system panel, it'll also send information to another radio, a receiving radio, that is the Camera Sentry. Now the Camera Sentry will receive that information via its radio. It will be processed by the AT-Tiny, and from there a relay will activate or deactivate, and from there that'll activate or deactivate the camera. Now the question is, what is the point of a Camera Sentry? Well, the point of a Camera Sentry is, if you guys have seen any news articles, you'll have known that these companies that you have these IP cameras or internet cameras through, they can see and hear what's going on in your house if they so choose to do. Now, of course, there may be a privacy policy and whatnot, and that's great and all. I'm not, assuming ill intent, but my problem isn't that I'm assuming ill intent. The problem is that another company has the capability to spy in on the goings-ons in my house if they decided to. They have the capability if they so chose. That I do not like. So because of that, I decided to make the Camera Sentry so that the camera is only active when I want it active. Because you can say on an app or via email, hey, deactivate the camera so that it doesn't record anything. But that's just for you. That doesn't necessarily mean that whatever company has access to that camera because it's their camera. That doesn't mean that they can't access it. That just means that it will not record and give you alerts if there is anyone or anything that causes a disruption in the house. So to avoid that capability of some company X, let's say, being able to spy in or see what's going on in my house, see and hear it, that's why I have it electrically connected, the camera, to the Camera Sentry, so that no matter what, I can say deactivate. Again, the companies can easily just, okay, well, the camera's not going to send alerts, but we still have the capability to see. If it's electrically disconnected, it just deactivates. There's no way around that. There's no backup battery or anything like that that'll last long enough for them to get any kind of real information. So that's why you just electrically disconnect it. That is the point of the Camera Sentry, to maintain my privacy and security while also maintaining my privacy and security. One is from the companies that have access to these cameras, and one is to ensure that I protect against people who may or may not break into my house. So yeah, it's a great system. I've already tested it. It works perfectly. But that is the Camera Sentry. and I can have it activate or deactivate at will. Just depends on how I program it. But this is what I really love about programming, is that it gives you outs and gives you options that you otherwise may or may not have, unless you want to spend a lot of money typically. The next system is the much more complicated Satcom Sentry. Now, Satcom is an abbreviation for satellite communication. And as you can see, I have a little satellite here. I hope you guys like the drawing. I did go to art school. So how the Satcom Sentry works is obviously it's a satellite communication unit capable of communicating with satellites. Now, how is that beneficial for Project Castle Guardian? Well, it's beneficial in that you have your Arduino. Notice it's an Arduino, not an ATtiny that I've normally used. Now, the reason why I use the Arduino is because the Arduino in this situation does support libraries and different functionality, which of course is something that I want and need, because ATtinys are just reading a state, on, off, good, bad, and information coming from the radio. The Arduino is capable of a lot more, and libraries, a series of libraries, are needed for the systems that I have installed for the Satcom Sentry. So what happens is the Arduino will send and receive information from the system panel, and whatever information is sent to the system panel for saving, and whatever information is received from the system panel, which is then processed by the Arduino microcontroller, more specifically an Arduino Nano microcontroller, which is included in the kits, the Sparrow programming kits that you guys can buy. If you look at my website, blackfalconelectronics.com, you'll see a link in the right hand corner with the Amazon symbol, and that will be a connection to our Amazon store. More things to come with that, more products to come with that, but just wanted to let you know that the things that I'm doing here, a lot of this is either in the kit or will be in other kits in the future that I develop if there's enough interest in the Sparrow programming kits. Beyond that, once the information is processed by the Arduino Nano microcontroller, the information is then sent to the Satcom unit, and the Satcom unit then shoots it up to a satellite. Now, in my next video, I will be showing you and having more detail for the Satcom Sentry, but for right now, we're talking more with the theory of how everything is supposed to work, and then I'll escalate further and show you guys how it actually looks, since I already did it. So the satellite now, the satellites, well, more satellites, are able to communicate around the world. They communicate with each other. Now, the good thing is that, like I said in previous videos, the best thing about having a Satcom unit is that I can be anywhere in the world and I can still receive alerts as to what's going on in my house. Was a window open or closed? Was a door open or closed? Is someone inside of my room? What's going on? And also remember that Project Castle Guardian, which is the totality of all of these systems, is also auto-arming and auto-disarming, which I will get into in a different video. But all these systems, the door window sentry, the room sentry, all communicates with the system panel. The system panel communicates with the radio here for the Arduino for the Satcom Sentry, sends the information to the Satcom unit, which sends it to the satellites over here, and then that communicates with me, and I can communicate back to it. So let's say it says an option. Let's say I program an option. Do you want to auto-arm the system? I can do that. I just go on to my system panel online, and then I send a message to the Satcom unit at home here. Hey, auto-arm the system. Yes, I want you to auto-arm the system. The information goes through servers. It gets shot up to the satellite. The satellites communicate with each other. It goes down to the Satcom unit. It's processed through the Arduino. The information to auto-arm is sent through the radio, which is then sent to the system panel. And then the system panel will then send the information out to all the subsystems. And now here we have a system control and recording, which is the system panel essentially. So the system panel communicates, it sends and receives information to the Satcom Sentry, door window sentry, camera sentry, and room sentry, but it also communicates with a data recorder. The data recorder records every bit of information, every order that was sent, received, and processed by all of the systems. Now, the point of that is just to have a system of record for everything that has happened in the house. Now, the data recorder will also have a timer, a clock calendar unit, so that I can have a date and time annotation to know when an order was sent and received. And I could also cross-reference that with the orders that I sent via my Satcom panel, and that I can compare them if there's some issue or concern with security. So yeah, this is going to be all the systems that I use. I have already developed a Windows Sentry, a Room Sentry, as well as developed the Satcom Sentry. So there's still more that needs to be done in terms of making more sentries, and I will show you guys in the next coming, I say within a week or two, so 7 to 14 days, I'll have another video dropped so you guys can see exactly how it's supposed to look and how I do the programming and the ins and outs of how I developed it. But thank you guys for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And please consider buying my Sparrow programming kits, or if there are other kits or other things that you would like for me to sell, just let me know, and I'll be more than willing to consider and possibly implementing your suggestions. But I hope you guys have a blessed day. God bless, and God bless the United States of America.